braces for your marketing.
Yes.
Orthodontic marketing. We've come up with a whole new thing. This is what we do here.
Here.
Hi, I'm Ahava Leibtag, your host of What Did You Learn? I am so excited to have with me here today
my dear friend and colleague, Carla Johnson. Get ready to have your socks blown off. Carla is a marketing and innovation strategist, an almost 10-time book author. We got to get to that. Her new book is coming out very, very soon, Rethink Innovation. Carla, I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. And I'm not wearing socks because I'm working from home, but no one can see that, but we'll start with that.
I'm happy that you're wearing pants at least. I mean, that's like a step up,
I am.
Right? So you've written 10 books. I've written one. It almost did me in. Tell us how you're able to sustain that kind of creativity, like your writing process, and C, like for my audience, what do you think would be like the book that they would most want to read besides this new Rethink Innovation book?
The seventh year of marketing is experiences. And I think what I brought to that book came from my background in working in healthcare and architecture. And I think the best thing that I learned by starting my career working with architects is you have to think about what's the experience you're trying to create. You know, somebody walks into a space, how do you want them to feel? You know, what is that above all else?
What's the main thing that's going to draw their attention?
Exactly. How do they flow through the experience? You know, what do you want them to feel? Happy, sad, you know, contemplate things, you know, what is it that you're creating for this experience? And then, you know, what physically does this experience look like? And then how do you reverse engineer it into everything that you have to create before that to make that happen?
So a healthcare marketer is trying to design a telehealth experience for a child, for a senior, for, you know, just a regular average person. What would you tell them about designing a digital experience in healthcare when you don't have a physical space, when you can't do an under the sea type of theme?
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing that marketers don't do. So I was a marketer who went out with design architects and talked directly to clients. And we were doing design thinking before design thinking was a thing, before IDEO was around and all of that, is that you have to talk to customers. And I think one of the biggest opportunities that we have that we miss as marketers is that we say we are the voice of the customers. But if you ask marketers, how much time have you literally spent with customers? It's zero.
Right.
And there is nothing, I mean, sit down with an older neighbor. I mean, of course, that hasn't been easy this last year, but I look at my mother's 92 and we have her now on Skype or Zoom or things like that, you know, so people can learn this, but making the experience so simple from their point of view, not ours, is what we really have to look at marketers.
My question to you is, if you're a marketer, where do you find inspiration? Because so many brands are doing the same thing over and over again. And like, as you're talking about this telehealth experience, I'm thinking, yeah, how come a screen doesn't pop up that says like, did you know that you need to get your flu shot? Or did you know that you need to think about this? Or, you know, are you vaccinated yet? Take a poll. Like, we could take advantage of so many things. And yet, you know, we're beaten down on the one hand, like you talked about, but then where should a marketer go for that inspiration? Because it was very clear to me that those speakers had been looking at things that had nothing to do with marketing to get ideas about how to deliver information.
And I think that's one of the heavy things about trying something different or getting an idea is that we're like, oh, I've got to think of a new idea. What am I going to do? And it's like this insanely overwhelming like burden. And it's not like we don't have enough to do already as marketers right now. And a study just came out from the World Health Organization this week that we're just more freaking overworked than ever. And for marketers,
which is really fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, imagine that. Like, and I mean, I've worked from home for 20 years, and I think there's a perception that when you work from home, you're sitting on the couch watching Netflix. And
currently, I'm not sitting on the couch.
Yeah, you and I are not right now, at least. And
Totally.
so it feels like finding inspiration feels like another huge burdensome thing we've got to do. But I think the biggest and most amazing thing about inspiration is that if you go hunting for it, it's going to be hard to find. Like if you're like, does that inspire me? Does that inspire? Ooh, you dang inspiration, where are you? You're never here when I need you. Kind of like a taxi or something. But it's really more about just being open. And I've noticed that I've had a lot on my plate this spring, and I haven't been so good about getting out and exercising. And now our gyms are a little bit more open for capacity. So I've been going to the gym, and dang, if it doesn't happen when I'm out for that run, that walk, or lifting weights or whatever it is, my mind can come up with 100 different things. Like I used to go, if I was totally had writer's block, I just go sit in a coffee shop and I just sit there and I'd look, and it's really being able to observe something that's going on around you without that pressure in your head of, I've got to come up with an idea right now. And the beauty of it, and I talk about this in the Rethink book, is that if we can take time, and time can be 90 seconds when you're waiting in line at the grocery store, and just like go, and don't look at your phone. I mean, your phone is the enemy of inspiration. And really just look at what's going on around you. Like, lo and behold, I have been going to the same Sprouts for 16 years. And one day I was in line, and instead of facing forward for a minute as I watched the people in the queue in front of me, I like turned around and looked the other way at the store, and I'm like, wow, I never looked at the store in this situation from this perspective, and it looked entirely different. And I noticed so many things that I had been completely blind to before. And it's just taking a few minutes. Like truly, if we as marketers can be more observant to the world around us, maybe it's watching people cross the street. Maybe it's the organization of the equipment on the playground. If you walk by a playground or have kids, maybe it's watching your favorite Netflix movie for like the 300th time, and stopping on your favorite scene and just taking a piece of paper and writing down every single thing that you notice, because that's what made that scene work. And I think as marketers,
I used to like to go out to restaurants or people watch, and I would make up stories about the people that, like I would drive myself crazy. Like, are they on a first date? Are they brother and sister? Like, and I would just like, and that would help me like almost bathe my brain in like directing my attention away from myself and, sort of that kind of thing. So you've written or contributed books. How'd you do that? Waiting for a taxi.
And there's some taxis that, like, if one doesn't come, you got to get to your destination.
Or you get on the next one. Right?
You got to get there by a deadline. And I think it's the exercising the muscle will teach you. And one of my routines for both writing and when I have to come up with new ideas is when I go into those situations, like a coffee shop, or I'll go sit at a park, I take a notebook and I do just write down the things that I see. Like, is it, I might see it, I might feel the breeze on my face, close my eyes and feel the sun on me, or, hear a car in the background, or whatever it is. Like, really take in that situation from all my senses.
It's funny. Somebody just asked me, like, what's your best writing tip? And I'm like, just write. You'll find the lead. Like, you'll find the lead on editing. Just write. Because if you sit there and you try to make the structure perfect, you'll spend all your energy on the structure and none of your energy on the actual writing, which you really want to come alive. So I want to go back to what you said about the whole, how you do what you do. And it's clear that you're very practiced at doing that. I want to connect those two things, though, to rethink innovation and what you were talking about yesterday at the conference about how to get past this being exhausted and feeling like you have the wind knocked out of your sails as you grow in your marketing career. Do you offer advice for that in Rethink Innovation? Is the topic completely different? Do you have advice for people? Like, you've done all this work, you've moved your body, you've made the list, you've come up with the ideas, you're disciplined about getting on the taxis. And you've observed a million different things. You've allowed your brain to bathe. You've turned around and looked at the story from a different I will say I loved your grocery store example, because sometimes I'll move my laptop around the house, and that can also really help me gain new perspective. But what do you tell somebody who's just like, you know what, Carla and Ahava, that's great. You guys run your own companies. You get to do what you want. And I'm sitting here like banging my head against the wall because they won't let me buy Canva because I want to do memes online. You know what I mean?
Totally. And in fact, the inspiration for this book came from feedback after Robert and I wrote experiences, and people would say, I love the process. Like, I get this now. And the story-driven journey and creating the story-driven content that delivers the experience. I get it. But the thing I still struggle with is, how do I come up with those ideas? And I think one of the saddest things that happens to people as humans, and I would watch this as people retire, is they walk away on their last day of work and they say to themselves, I could have done better. And I think I look at...
I do that every day at 5 p.m.
Yeah. I mean, and we're all going to have those shitty days, right? We're all going to have those days where we get beat up, spit out. But to have...
Who calls it the cage match? How many rounds in the cage match did you do this year?
There is that. And I'm big on pattern interrupt things in conversations. And I think that is...
Say more about that.
Yeah, I will. And it's something that I use in my own work. And it's easy. I have to tell you, I think it's easy for people to look at you and me and say, you've got it easy. You work for yourself. No, we don't. We work for everybody else. And I think one of the easiest and hardest things is to be that outsider and to come in. And I remember being in a content strategy session with an executive group, and the CFO was in there. And he, like, everything, just bashed it. And finally saying, what is it that we're ultimately trying to accomplish here? Like, what, back to what you and I were talking a few minutes before we started this conversation, like, what's the big objective? It's not about the number of blog posts. Our big objective isn't about social media posts. It's not about who approves the video. Like, what's the ultimate goal that we're trying to achieve here? And I think one of the things that is hard for marketers to do, and I see this in the research that I've done about the archetypes of innovators and how they're willing to have conversations about ideas, is that only 8% of them are, of the people I've surveyed, the thousands of people I've surveyed, are willing to have the hard conversations about the ideas and the process and what needs to be done.
Where I'm struggling right now is I have never seen those pattern interrupts really work. I've seen them work in the moment. I've seen myself being able to turn the tide of the conversation. But after the deliverable is in, very little gets done. Because even though they're willing to hear it in that 20-minute place where you get them to reframe their thinking, the cultural change is not there.
And I'll admit, it's not something you can do once and pattern interrupt and have it stick. It's constant pressure. My son is 14 and has braces, and he had them a year and a half. We went to Spain for a year, so he took them off. Now he's back for a year and a half, and we went in for his monthly checkup yesterday. And you know what? He's not wearing the rubber band, so that constant pressure has been off, and things move back to where they were. And I think that's something we have to remember as marketers, is we're the rubber bands, and we're either constantly applying that pressure in small ways with everything we do. And if we don't, it's going to go back to the way it was.
It's so
because
true.
if we don't tend to that rubber band, it's going to dry out and snap.
Yeah.
Or if you try to stretch it too far too fast.
Braces for your marketing.
Yes.
Orthodontic marketing. We've come up with a whole new thing. This is what we do here.
Here. But you know what? That little example is the observation what it means, how it relates to our work, and now we've created a new metaphor.
All right, so let's talk about the last 18 to 24 months. We're not at 24 months, thankfully. We're only at, I think, what, a year and a few months?
15, 14 months.
Yeah, March to May.
Yeah.
What'd you learn?
You know, I think the biggest thing that I learned, I mean, I'm an ambivert and I needed some introvert time, but man, I need my extrovert time. And it's just how powerful giving somebody a hug is. And not that I didn't know that before, but it's an incredible reminder. I think the other thing I learned is how important routine is, even when it feels every day is exactly the same.
Carla, where can people find you?
My website is Carla with a C, Johnson.co. There's no M, just CO. You can find me there. I have a blog. I have a newsletter that comes out every other week. And I always love to connect on LinkedIn. Just
awesome.
Carla Johnson.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm delighted. This was so fun. Thank you for having me.
So fun. Thank you.